Many of you were here this morning, so please forgive the repeat, but there are some people who are new in our group this afternoon. My name is Dorothy Franklin, and I'm a member of Silver Spire United Church, and it was my privilege and pleasure to be the lead of the planning team for this event. And we're delighted you're here, and our panel this afternoon is going to let you hear from some newcomers to Niagara. I am going to let you know that there are washrooms at the back of the sanctuary, but there's only one on each side. If you go down to the auditorium where lunch was served, there are other washrooms there, and also on the main floor, just past the office, there is a washroom. I would like to thank everyone who has been involved in this day, who is here with us, the planning team, our funders, and participants from all the community service provider displays. You will notice that in your program, there is a pink evaluation sheet. We would ask that you fill it out, and please leave it when you're exiting the building through the St. Paul Street doors at the end of the day, or hand it to a volunteer or someone with a name tag from the church. We would really like to get your response on what worked and what we could do better at another event. We are a downtown church. The building is open. Please be aware of security and keep your personal possessions with you at all times. The slideshows that were used this morning are available. There were some technical glitches and some of the numbers didn't get displayed, but anyone who wants a copy of the slideshow can email me at nrncf@silverspire.ca, and I will be happy to send that out to people. I'm going to turn this over to Reverend Bill Thomas, who's going to talk a little bit about our afternoon panel.
So you might have noticed that I've changed. So just to let you know that when Ton was talking, and he made a point of pointing out that his last name is Campbell, which is a great, long-standing Vietnamese name.
We're neighbors.
But Todd made that point, and then there was a young woman, the psychiatrist, who talked about her daughter and the assumption that her daughter could speak Arabic because of her name and because she was not white. And I just want to point out that if you look at the map downstairs, there's one pin in Scotland, and that's me. So at one point in my life, I was a newcomer. But nobody has ever asked me where I come from. It is always assumed that I am Canadian. Now I am, but there is never a doubt. I'm never asked how long it took me to learn English. And so I just wanted to point that out. And I also want to say my last name is Thomas, a member of the Campbell clan, and this is the Black Watch Tartan. Okay, so this afternoon, the panel that we are going to hear from this afternoon is made up of individuals who are newcomers to Canada, newcomers to Niagara, and I don't know the stories. I don't know how long you've been here. I don't know how long it took you to learn the language. I don't know any of those questions or those answers. But what we're going to hear today from the panelists is what the experience was like coming into this community. Now, they all have different stories of how they got to this community. And the panelists and others in the group, including myself, I could tell you how I got here. But the purpose of the panel this afternoon is about the experience of coming into this community, not how we got here. And so I would encourage, we will at the end have opportunity for questions, and I would encourage those who feel themselves called to ask a question to remember that. So it's not about what it was like leaving Syria or Sudan or, I don't know, Colombia. I don't even, okay, so I don't even know where you're from. But I just want to really encourage us to remember that, and when it comes time for questions, I will remind us. And so I would invite the panelists to take their seats on the stage, and Dorothy has something else.
What I forgot to mention is that over the summer, a young woman from the St. Catharines community who could not be here today recorded a short video. And that's what we're starting with this afternoon, the video of Eva Wren's story, and then we will move into the live panel discussion. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Eva Wren, and I have recently graduated from Eden High School. I am very grateful to have received one of the Zonta Young Women in Public Affairs International Awards this year. This is an honor for me. And thank you for giving your time to be part of the Newcomers and Refugees in Niagara Community Forum. A little about myself. Throughout high school, I developed a passion for volunteering and different organizations that help other youth newcomers, like the Folk Arts Multicultural Center, as well as starting my own organization. From a personal perspective, upon immigrating to Quebec from China, I remember the lack of friends, the struggle of trying to communicate, and the look on my parents' faces from seeing their daughter fail so many classes. I was 5 years old when I immigrated here. Due to my parents' employment, I moved 7 times while being enrolled in a French school throughout my elementary education. However, since my parents had no knowledge of French and lacked the financial resources for a tutor, learning a new language entirely alone and completely from scratch was my biggest obstacle as a young immigrant. Due to these language barriers, I struggled to comprehend the material taught by my teachers, and I failed to communicate with my classmates. As a result, my childhood consisted of communicating with others using hand signs, and I received numerous disappointing report cards, and I almost failed a grade as well. I eventually improved French and learned English after I moved to Ontario. Despite this, trying to belong at school still remained an uphill battle. I insisted that I disliked math in an attempt to seize my classmates' ridicule of Asian stereotypes, grew insecure concerning the way that I spoke due to my accent at that time, and stopped bringing food from home because it smelled different. Realizing that others feel the communication barriers, as well as the racial stereotypes that I did, I wanted a creative platform free of judgment for minorities, especially peers and newcomers, to help with their language and social barriers. So after gathering a small group of my friends that were also passionate about the cause, Voyage was born, which is where I started an informal peer-to-peer mentoring program. And in order to accomplish that, a newcomer would be paired up with a Canadian student here, and then they would help each other out on things like English, on things like slang, and then other academic questions that they would have at school, and also be a peer and be someone to listen to if they had any problems. I personally love to interact with those people and to meet people of all kinds of backgrounds and cultures, and I love listening to their own immigration stories as well. This was done mostly online, but there were some mentors that were also going to the other mentees' houses. Whenever there are youth that discuss issues such as immigration, such as trying to help this specific demographic, I feel like a lot of the time society often asks us, well, what do you know? You're only 18 and you're so young. But whoever in my community experience and volunteering with this mentoring program, I find fulfillment in challenging anyone who still thinks that youth cannot make a significant impact in our community. And moving on, this fall, I will be studying international management at McGill University. And in the future, my ambition is to work with international conflicts and be in the field of politics, or perhaps starting my own social business one day. And in the community, I plan myself and I see myself to be continuously involved in different events and different organizations that help others integrate into our country. And thank you very much for listening to my story.
All right, thank you very much. So welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed their lunch. We will now proceed with the afternoon panel. So the way that this panel will work is that we have a series of questions, but they're not going to be directed to each of you specifically. It'll be open-ended. So whoever is willing and able to answer any of these questions, feel free to let me know, raise a hand, something like that, and we'll come to you. So I would like to introduce our esteemed panel for this afternoon. So on my immediate left, we have Niagara. Niagara. Hashtag recognize, own, and walk in your magnificence. And to the left of her is Ahmed Al-Yafi'i, originally from Yemen, but born and raised in the United Arab Emirates. And to the left of Ahmed, we have Yeneth from Colombia. She was an environmental lawyer in Colombia and is currently the founder of Links for Greener Learning for the Niagara region. And to the left of Yeneth, we have Jane Masenda. She also hails from Zimbabwe and is a volunteer for the Out of the Cold program. And to the left of Jane, we have Mahmoud, and he is a Palestinian-Canadian history student who immigrated to Canada with his family from Syria at the age of 10. So thank you all for joining us today, and we will proceed with the questions. So the first question that we want to ask is, what was your main welcoming community when you first arrived in Canada? So this can be anything from if you had family members here or friends, social group, things like that. What would you categorize as your main welcoming community? Go ahead.
My first welcoming community would be, since I immigrated when I was 10 years old, it's usually for every immigrant kid, it's a teacher, especially ESL teachers. I would say one of the most welcoming people who I have met, especially when I came to St. Catharines, and educators from ESL teachers until university. I have a lot of professors who have welcomed me and in a way inspired me. They helped me feel welcome on campus and have inspired me to do more in my studies and everyday aspect of life.
Okay, hi everyone. So, Yusuf, for me, it's like so many people that really helped me here. So, like family, my sister here, and then my teachers, the one that I was studying in Senan School, and of course the Folk Art Multicultural Center and the YMCA.
Thank you. Anyone want to jump in on that question?
I'd have to say, for me, the most welcoming group was the faith groups. I found lots and lots of love and welcome from those groups.
You're gonna have to speak louder. Yeah.
Let's move the mic to...
Can you hear me now? Okay. Now, I was just saying that for me, the faith group played a very important part in welcoming me here because I was coming to a new place. I didn't know anybody. We had no friends, and my social support was gone. But I found so much welcome, friendship, and warmth in the faith groups. For me, that was my biggest welcoming group.
For me, we didn't have any family, no friends here, so I can say that my welcome community, it was the Multicultural Center in Welland, and it was a lot of newcomers consuls there, so it was very easy for us to learn a little bit about what was happening, how to find a place to live, the support that we need, because as immigrants, so like, our situation, everything is changed from that since we arrived here. So honestly, the Multicultural Center in Welland gives us everything that we need to start a new life here in Canada.
Thank you.
So our follow-up question to that is, as you settled into the Niagara region, what were some of the difficulties that you faced or maybe are facing, and how do you see yourselves overcoming and, being able to handle those difficulties as you try and settle into this region?
Okay, I think for me personally, something that was spoken about earlier was the issue of inclusivity, where there was no inclusivity when I came in. You had the multicultural centers that took care of mostly it was the immigration part of settling in Canada, which is great because if you're coming from somewhere and you don't know how a system works, it's always great to have somebody to help you. So for that was huge to have. But otherwise, after all these agencies had done the immigration part, you're on your own, basically. And so for me, I found that was the most difficult part, trying to break into, I find Niagara region is a very tribal society, where it's little cliques, and trying to break into those cliques if you're an outsider, is not easy. They don't want you inside the groups, and you sort of have to force your way into it. And so just gathering up that confidence to make yourself be part of something was the most difficult part for me.
What have you found working for you to try and, break into these groups without,
I think for me it's shameless persistence and my hashtag. The hashtag that I believe by recognizing, owning, and walking in your magnificence, knowing that I do have what it takes to be at a certain place, and I continuously persist to be there. You either make room or I will find a chair and bring it to the table, right? That's my strategy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Anyone else have any, ways that they've been able to cope and be able to manage?
Yeah, I think I'd go along with what Nyarai just said. It is very hard when you're just a newcomer. You really don't know how to go about things. You need somebody to take you by the hand, as it were, and kind of show you the ropes. For me, it was almost like what she's saying. I just had to be there. I put myself out there and said, I do have a story to tell. I'm a person too, and not in an aggressive manner, of course, but I found that there were some doors that were slightly ajar, and suddenly I pushed those open and went in. And I made new friends, and it's very interesting because for me, I found people who were willing to learn about me and my culture too. So I'd say to those newcomers who are out there and finding the doors are kind of closed, don't give up, keep pushing. Because you never know, somebody wants to know your story. We're learning about the Canadian culture, and I think one of the biggest challenges was nobody wanted to know about my culture, or nobody knew about my culture. You need to know how I do things and why I do them the way I do. I was out there trying to understand the Canadian culture and why they did things the way they did. But the other parties didn't seem to be interested in how and why I was doing what I was doing the way I was doing. Like, if I don't look you in the eye, that doesn't mean I'm a crook or anything. But my culture says, lower your eyes. And not necessarily just my culture, other cultures will say, lower your eyes. So I think it has to be a two-way thing. I get your culture, get mine, then we move together.
I'll add to that. Do you find or feel that it's easier for women to transition or easier for men to transition? And I'll throw that out.
I think that for men, the transition is easy. It's nothing related to be a man or be a woman. It's because, in my opinion, and in my case, I was a mom, and I had a small child, right? So I feel that I was most responsible for my kid and making sure that he gets ready for for everything, and not knowing the language, it was very hard for me. So my husband, he just has to find a job. For me, it was about learning the language, being a mom, and trying to build a new life for all of us. So, but that's my point of view, right? As a woman, it's not anything related to being a woman or man. It was more difficult for my husband to get in their field than for me. For me, it was all starting everything again.
Thank you. Anyone else? One of the gentlemen.
Okay, as new immigrants, there will be, of course, like some of the challenge. So, ladies and gentlemen, once I came, me, my wife, and then my brother and his wife. So we came like 1st of January. It was, rainy. It was snowing. It was winter, so it was really, difficult, the weather. So.
And I'll just say, actually, like, Ahmed, sorry to interrupt, Ahmed comes from United Arab Emirates, and if you know the weather there, it's consistent 40 degrees Celsius.
Yeah,
so coming in January, maybe
it was
a big challenge, right?
Yeah, it's a big challenge. So, and then, we've been trying to look for a house or an apartment for rent. But the thing is, whenever we go there, they ask for like a co-signer. It was hard for us to find someone, So yeah, and then to find, and the next one is like to find a full-time job here. It's a bit hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering from the panel, the experiences that you had, let's say in the first 6 months of being here, have they improved over time, or are you still hitting some of those same obstacles that you hit right from the beginning? Mahmoud?
For example, the experience with language. When I immigrated here, one of the major difficulties was the language, especially the language barrier. I would say this is why to go back to the first question. Actually, to tie it to the first question is, in a way, when I first came here, I got along well with other ESL teachers, even ESL students. I mean, even though, especially the ones that didn't speak the language, like Spanish speakers, other speakers, because we all shared, we all shared the same, similar story of immigrating and not speaking and not coming from a place that English is spoken. So I would say that has improved over time, especially with education. And especially going through high school and over the years and attending university, that had improved.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone else's experience change or get better, or did it sort of stay the same since you've been here?
For me personally, I think it gets better. I mean, everything gets better with time, and I think what makes it most difficult at the beginning is when you come into a new place, you have perceived notions and ideas. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, Canada is sold as an amazing, wonderful place where everybody is hugging and everybody loves everybody, right? And so when you get here and you don't see that, it hits you. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I've got to navigate that. But then as time goes, you develop the skills or the tools that you need to navigate, and you find allies as well along the way that make the journey a lot easier. So it does get easier as you go.
Yes, it gets easy. It's always something, right? As I am still having this issue because the language sometimes is hard because people is looking at me and saying, I don't understand what you're talking about. And it's always going to happen. There is some people that's so kind and they will understand you, or they will ask you again to try to understand what are you saying. And you are going to find some people that is very rude and they say, oh, she doesn't speak English. But I don't think that that can be a barrier for us to pursue our dreams here in this country, because we have some people like that. But I can say that most of the people is very nice and they are open, they are willing to open the doors for us.
Any other?
Yeah. it sure does get easier as time goes on. And I think the accent thing, I always will say back, if somebody says, well, I don't understand your accent, I'll just say, well, you know what? I don't understand your accent. You also have an accent. Because it's true. We all have accents, just different accents. But it always, for us immigrants, it's always we have the accent. The locals don't have an accent, but I believe they do. It's just a different accent. So, and it's okay. I think that's the beauty of it. Can you imagine if we all had one accent? I say tomato, maybe you'll say tomato. So I think, you know what, if we embrace that diversity, it makes it all the easier. Oh, and by the way, absolutely, my support system now is stronger than ever. I have a whole bunch of friends, Canadian friends, all shapes and colors, different nationalities, not just from my country, by the way. I have from all kinds of countries. So I'm so thankful that Canada is this kind of country. It does get better, by the way.
That's wonderful. I had the experience when I went down to Mississippi, and they told me I talked funny. Y'all, I didn't get that one at all. In your experience, now having been here, what would you say Niagara could do? You know, what would you recommend to people to make it an easier and more inclusive community? What could be done? What are some tools that could be done, or even, you know, thoughts that you've had? Only if they had this. Yes.
Can I answer? I would say making it a safer community, to make Niagara more hospitable and attractive for new immigrants and refugees, to make Niagara safer, especially with, as one speaker discussed how there are white supremacist groups active in Niagara. Well, as responsible citizens, we should fight against that, and we should not allow racism on our streets, because you know, this really alienates the new immigrant, the newcomer who comes to Niagara and sees and experiences discrimination, racism, and sees, well, he or she or they are not welcome in Niagara, and that alienates them further and pushes them to move to Toronto, for example, and that's not nice. You know, people should stay in Niagara. People should come to Niagara. You know, because it should be a more diverse place.
Wonderful. Any thoughts or ideas?
I think if everybody remembers that Canada is a country of immigrants, it would be a great start. You might be 100 years here, 200, but your journey started somewhere. And mine is just starting later than yours. But if everybody just took that notion that, you know what, my journey of immigration started 200 years ago, maybe not with me, but with somebody in my clan, this person is now starting theirs. In 200 years to come, somebody from my clan is going to be saying, oh yeah, my family came here 200 years ago. So this journey is continuous. And so if everybody took away this idea that they are the Canadians and it is them, that would help a lot, because there's always that us and you, and you know, and I think the very question, where are you from, is very much a us and them kind of thing. So I think if we walked away from that, that would be great.
That's a good point, asking that question. Like, it's a paradigm shift, right? It's a paradigm shift of your thinking.
So my next question actually is the experience or expertise that you had back home, the countries that you lived most of your life, perhaps. Have you been able to apply those skills or experience here in Canada? Let's say you were a businessman back home. How was that process to, let's say, opening a business here? Or if you were an engineer, how was that process becoming an engineer here? Do you feel like Niagara was an area that allowed for you to set in place some of these skills that you have?
I'd say in theory, yes, but practically, no. because you have to go through a system of getting your credentials validated, which is fine, by the way, but then there's always the case of you're from wherever you are from. Now you have to go through this process in order for you to perform these, but practically I can do what you want me to do. It's just that process that is, I think it's a little long drawn. If it could be kind of like, I don't know what I could say, what word to use. But yeah, it's too long. And sometimes we tend to then lose people, as Ahmed said. They'll move out because it's just too long. I don't know what Toronto does, but I think this is a national thing, that maybe if something could be done, instead of saying, okay, fine, you have this qualification from country A, B, now for you to do this, you almost have to start from scratch in order to get that same qualification. I don't know, it would be more attractive if it could be shrunk, the process thereof, I mean, but of course, still maintain the integrity of that process without having it taking forever.
Maybe I can ask the panelists, if you had a career back in your country, what was it? What was your skill trade? What were you involved with before coming to Canada?
I was a lawyer in Colombia, so for me it was easy to understand that the laws or regulations are different everywhere. So, but that doesn't mean that you had to quit to realize that you can have, a career here. So for me, as I say, it was the language, not knowing the language. So I came like 14 years ago, and I didn't have the chance to go to the university and be a lawyer here, but it was my decision because I had a 1-year-old boy on me, right? But I had the opportunity to learn the language, and that's why I always grateful about Canada, because they give me the opportunity to study without being worried to get a job and study the language at the same time. I had the opportunity to focus on the language. I learned the English. I had the opportunity to go to the college without paying any money. And after I had the opportunity to study something that I really loved, that it was environmental management and assessment, because in Colombia, I was an environmental lawyer. And of course, I'm not making the money, but I love what I am doing, and I love working with different people. I work with the cities and Catharines, doing environmental education. I work with the multicultural centers, and I'm very happy doing what I'm doing.
For me, I did civil engineering back home. So and then once I came here, I've just been like 8 months only. So it's hard to find these kind of jobs. So, I mean, you have to have a license to do this job. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's since I immigrated when I was 10 years old. It's more. I wasn't working in Syria. No, I wasn't. It's for my experience more of a student experience of studying here and acquiring the skills here. When I'm currently studying history, and what's interesting about studying history is I'm taking classes with my Latin American history professor, Maria del Suez Composa. She's in the audience, by the way. And her way of teaching is experiential learning. So when her classes are way different from other university courses. So when I study history, we also apply it in the real world. I have assignments where I have to go and interview people, interview community partners, go to museums, and go to museums and other kind of places, and apply history and real life experience into it, and craft a project out of it. That's what I find interesting about my experience.
Excellent. You're going to get a good mark now, Mahmoud, because she is in the audience. It always helps to suck up.
There is a term called pay it forward, right? When one person does something for you, then you go and do something. And, it's amazing in the morning when you step out your door and someone holds the door for you, and then all of a sudden you feel like holding the elevator for that person, and then all of a sudden So in your situation, you know, people who have helped you, it sounds like you have a very positive experience. Have you been able to pay it forward? Have you been able to help others who are coming and help them have a better and great experience coming to camp?
Absolutely, I have. I felt I had to do that because, like I said, I experienced it firsthand as a newcomer, and I knew what it was like. So I volunteered with Shea Marie. It's a local settlement place here in St. Catharines, and part of what we did was to help the newcomer get settled, point them in the right direction, where to get the resources, and basically get them all the way through until they got to their papers all done. So I found that very fulfilling, and especially that I knew where to take them, where to go, and what hardships or difficulties they might encounter. So yeah, absolutely, I can stand up and say I've done my part on that way, and I love to continue doing that. And now I volunteer. I've been volunteering with Out of the Cold Niagara since I got here in 2008, and I think I'll continue to do that for as long as I can stand up.
Me too. So every time that because I am the director of the organization, every time that I had the opportunity to hire a newcomer to provide that job experience that they need to move forward with their lives, I do it. So and work with different organizations, getting tips for people like United Way. Has been very good with us, providing some home kits, backpacks for students. So every time that I can get that support from those organizations, I take it because I give it to people who know that I need, because I was there too, right? And I know how everything that we get is so good for us, and it really helps us to move forward with our lives in Canada.
Oh, I can certainly say I think I do it. I tend to be the reality check in people's lives because I know what it was like when I first got here and the difficulties that we went through and the things that I hoped I had when I first got here. And because of that, and as a woman too, because I'm an activist for women's issues, and I understand that most of us are coming from backgrounds where, you know, we are not as liberal as our Canadian counterparts, and how difficult that is just for you to get into the work, how it affects your chances of actually just creating relationships that are so important, especially in this region where everything is about who you know and the networks. And if you're coming from backgrounds where that is not a thing that you would do as a woman, it's important that we encourage each other as women, and I think I do that all the time. When I saw the shortfalls of the things that were missing, I started an organization called TOES Niagara, which is it's called Tools of Empowerment for Success, and it's all about just helping each other out and showing us each other that, you know what, it can be done. It might take a bit of time, but at the end of the day, it will be done, and you know, never to give up, and just also to make newcomers realize that yes, you've got agencies that offer resources and supports, but at the end of the day, your life is your duty, you know, so you have to make it work. Doors may shut, but you've got to find another way, because it's not up to the Canadians that are already here to make your life happen. You have to want to be successful. You have to know what it is that you want, right? And then find the people that can help leverage you getting there faster, but ultimately it's your responsibility.
Excellent. So just, Mahmoud, did you want to say?
I would say this is my experience in actually when I got an internship a summer internship in Hamilton. Actually, I worked at the Immigrants Working Center as a settlement support assistant, and working with refugees and immigrants, and helping settlement counselors with language, and helping ESL teachers over there too with the English language and translating from Arabic to English and English to Arabic. And I volunteered at the Immigrants Working Center too with the newcomers and especially Syrian families who have came to Hamilton. And I really like cherish that experience because it's one of the most important things for me is working with immigrants and refugees, and because of myself as a newcomer who came years ago to help refugees, immigrants who have came to Canada recently.
Thank you. So just shifting gears a little bit, in the morning panel, it was mentioned that there have been some incidences, unfortunately, of, you could say, racism or physical harm to visible minorities. And it's unfortunate, right? But in your experience being here, in your circle of contacts, in your network, or even yourself, have there been any examples or incidents of you feeling unwelcome here in Niagara? And if so, how did you respond to that situation?
So for me, no, serious, I haven't experienced any of the unwelcomes, yeah.
That's good to hear. Anyone else?
Because serious people are like so welcome to us.
Talk on the mic if you don't mind.
Yeah, so like I said, I haven't experienced any of unwelcome. So people are really welcomed here. They are so kind. Whenever they walk, whenever you walk, they smile at you, which is really nice, Yeah.
Anyone else? Any examples of?
When I decided to start Links for Greener Learning, of course, nobody knows me, right? So nobody knows. So you had to start trying to get some people that believed in what you wanted to do. So there is some people that they opened the doors for me, and there is some people that they didn't open the doors for me. I never get any support from them. That doesn't stop me to continue trying to do what I wanted to do. So I just persist in what I wanted to do. Today, I see some of these people, and those people is looking at me and saying, "Oh, did you have an office in this building?" And I say, "Yes, I had an office." Oh, so you are doing okay? And say, "Yes, I'm doing okay." And people kind of got a surprise that I is still doing what I am doing. It hasn't been easy, but I is still fighting, and still some people, I don't get good answers from some agencies and from other people, but I just keep going. And most of the people say yes, but some people is going always to say no because they don't trust you, because they don't believe that you are smart or anything, right? But it's about just keep going and try to persist in what we wanted to do, and that we want to continue. And we are part of this society. We pay taxes. We had a house here. Our children are going to the schools. So we are part of the society. Even when some people don't accept us, we have to keep going. So it's no other way to survive.
And I can vouch for Yennet, actually. Professionally speaking, we've had to make connections with her organization, and she is very persistent. So she doesn't take no for an answer. So we appreciate that about her, though, and her programs are successful. Any other examples before we move on to the next question? Have there been any experiences since you've been here that have made you feel unwelcome, and how did you respond to that situation?
I think, for me, there has been a lot of those experiences. You live them every day as a Black woman in Niagara, especially in the workplace, when you walk in and your colleagues say things that are either racist or inappropriate as a joke. And you're supposed to laugh along, because then if you call them out, you're viewed as the angry Black woman, and so on almost like a weekly basis, you are reminded, whether it's subtly or very overtly, but in a joking kind of way, that, you are not one of us. And the only way I have found to cope with that is Again, like I always say, in every situation, if this situation were not to change ever, what characteristics do I need to develop to cope? And so you develop some coping mechanisms or some characteristics where you have to work within those kind of environments. And unfortunately, sometimes it's systemic as well, more than individuals. You know, with individuals, you can choose to stay away from them and ignore them. But when it's a whole system that's working against you, it's a bit difficult. And I come across that most of the times.
Well, it kind of leads to the next question, maybe in the workplace. You know, outside of a fantastic forum like this, have you had opportunities to talk about, you know, diversity and cultures living and, you know, working together? Outside of this, have you had opportunities to bring up those points of discussion?
Was that true?
Anyone?
Oh, okay. Well, I would say I do. I make it my business, honestly, to a point where I think now whenever people see me come to a place, it's like, oh my God, there she comes, because I will talk about it. And I think it's important that we have these conversations, and because sometimes people are not aware that what they're saying or doing is either being perceived as racist or whatever. They think, because it's been a joke for so long and nobody seems to mind, they think it's okay. And sometimes I think it's important that we remind each other, or call people out and make people uncomfortable, because what they're doing is making you uncomfortable. So I do that all the time. I will go out. I insist when I go to the schools, because I've got a child in the school as well, right? And you find teachers most schools don't really have things in place where, like anti-racism policies, how do you deal with it? And your kid is coming off the bus and she's crying and she's using the N-word, and you're thinking, this is 2017. How do I explain this to an 8-year-old? And so I will go into the schools and talk about these things, insist on meeting the parents and say, you know what, it's okay. Whatever you choose to teach your kid in your home is one thing, but when your kid has to come out and interact with the rest of our kids and then have to face this, and because as a mother raising a black child, it's important that I talk about this all the time. So everywhere I go in the community, whether it's the police, I insist on seeing their anti-racism policies. I go everywhere and insist on it.
So are you bringing up discussions not only how to tolerate one particular group, but how multiple groups should be living together?
That's
like,
right.
We don't want to have what happened, about the question in the first session, where we start having these ghettos, because we can get along with our own, right? Yeah. We need to start having discussions with, how do we get along together?
That's
because
right.
we're it's just us. Are you guys facilitating? And it sounds like you gentlemen, you're helping with us.
Yeah, I would say, especially education is important, like you have suggested, like anti-racist education is important to have in school, and to have in school curriculums, for example, and especially universities too. Like even they go from elementary, even before that, kindergarten to university. The discussion, there needs to be more discussion on anti-racism and diversity and equity in that prospect.
No one else before we wrap this part up?
I would say that you can do this on a large platform, or you can do it on a day-to-day basis. For me, my platform is my faith group, and I'm very fortunate to be part of a faith group that is intentionally multicultural, and in that setting, I get to understand other cultures. They get to understand me, and I think knowledge plays a very large part towards getting rid of all these preconceived notions about you are whatever, you are something else. Because once we get to know each other and understand each other, we'll be so surprised to find that there's so very little that we have that's different. Most of it, we're so totally alike. So I think it should be a challenge that even if your platform is one individual, so be it. Because if you are going to look for a large platform, you might never get it.
That's right.
And as that Chinese proverb goes, a journey of 1,000 steps starts with one step. So if we start from that one step, we should get someplace. And so, yes, I am actively doing that in my church community, and that's fine. It's not a large platform, but it's doing the job.
Well, I want to say thank you very much to all of our panelists. If we can give them a hand. I will say, even though I came in 1975, I have experienced racism even growing up in Cambridge and in New Brunswick. Not so much in Hamilton, except for a couple of years ago with my daughter. And when that happened, I'm going, seriously, this is still going on. And this is in Hamilton, where it's quite diverse. And so I want to encourage you, take what these folks have said, right? Start these discussions. And it's not only about Canadians tolerating newcomers, but it's all nationalities being able to work with each other and be able to cooperate and live with each other.
So I guess now we'll open it up to Q&A.
Well, we did get behind on our schedule, so unfortunately we are not going to do the Q&A with this panel. However, most of the panelists are going to be around for the afternoon, and I'm sure that if you are in a discussion group with them, you can talk to them, or if you see them at break, I'm sure they are willing to talk to people in the audience for as long as they are available. And I'm very sorry that we got off schedule and we're not taking questions at this time. So what I wanted to say now was that we are going to move into a session where people have the opportunity to meet in breakout groups on specific topics, or you can enjoy some informal networking and chatting time in the auditorium or upstairs in the gym where the community displays are. There is a pin the map exercise in the auditorium. There is an community art activity in the auditorium, and so you have a choice. We are very privileged to have some group leaders with us today who are doing various sessions, and they've been extremely patient in waiting to find out which rooms they're using for their various groups. Nirai, who has been on the panel here, is doing a session on empowering women. And if that is the session you signed up for, please follow the orange signs to the hearth room. The yellow signs lead to the council room, where Moses Moini from this morning's panel is doing an information session on sponsorship, and anybody, a potential, a new or experienced sponsor, is welcome to go and ask their questions after he presents some information. If you signed up for the information presentation on the Safe Third Country Protocol with Martha Mason, you will be in the Spire room, and you can follow the pink signs to the Spire room to meet with Martha. Dave Raymond from the region of Niagara is leading a consultation on why Niagara and things we might do to make the communities more welcoming to immigrants and newcomers. And he is in the carousel players space on our second floor, and you can follow the green signs to the carousel space. Tamari Katosa is doing an anti-racism and settlement agency discussion, and he is going to be here in the sanctuary with his group. So, Nirai, empowering women in the hearth room, orange signs. Moses, yellow, the council room on sponsorship. Pink, the Spire room, Martha Mason on Safe Third Country Protocol. And green signs, region of Niagara, why Niagara, and anti-racism and settlement agencies here. Or go and socialize in the display area or the auditorium. Be back here at 3 o'clock, Zarkanawaz, our keynote address starts. Thank you.
Wasn't too bad, was it?
Yes, sir.